Okay. Good. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. It's 7:03 on August 31st, 2023. The land acknowledgement that we incorporate into every meeting. Rachel, would you like to read that?
Sure. We acknowledge that our meeting is taking place on occupied Indigenous land. We acknowledge ancestral lands of the Tiwa and Apache people. We honor these people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the history and ongoing colonization of where we are sitting right now in New Mexico and in our country. We acknowledge our own place in the story of colonization. We honor the diverse, vibrant Native communities that make their homes here today, specifically the Picaris and Jicarea Apache.
Thank you. Next agenda item is roll call. And I think we'll take this advantage of roll call. Maybe all of us will introduce ourselves, 3 board members and Rachel. And then if each of our guests who are considering joining us on the board could then give just a short introduction, that would be great. So I'm Marcia Brendan, live here in Dixon, and I'm currently the chair of the Embudo Valley Library Community Center Board.
I'm Darren Grego. I'm from Dixon, actually Apalaka, and I've been with I'm a board member for over 3 years now.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Gonzalez Mitchell. I live in the Varito area. And in terms of board membership, I'll be coming up on 3 years in the fall, I believe.
I'm Rachel Exposito. I'm the executive director. I've been in that position for about 2.5 years.
Kyle, you want to go next?
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button. I'm Kayo, and I am a librarian and the current after-school program coordinator and the Caterpillar coordinator.
Okay. Shumitro, you want to start by introducing yourself? Oh,
Sorry, I just realized. I'm Shumitro Sengupta, and I'm a Dixon resident, currently actually sitting in California. Marcia called me yesterday, and I said, I just drove into California. So looking forward to attending part of today's meeting and see where it goes. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
welcome.
Do you want to hear anything about my background or anything, a very brief blurb?
Yeah, that might help. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I guess I was trained as a psychologist, but I worked as a research psychologist most of my career in California. And I retired as the executive director of California's external quality review organization. So we review all county mental health programs, but that even after I retired, I still work as a consultant in California. So that's the thing. But with COVID and everything, so past 3 years, I've been working only on Zoom. So I have had a lot of mental health services experience in California, starting with San Francisco Community Mental Health Services. So that's kind of my background.
Thank you. Jennifer, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I am Jennifer Wilkham. I live down the street in Embudo, right down here. I've been here about 10 years, 10 plus years now. A teacher at Velarde Elementary, first and second. Been teaching about 8 years now. And my son goes to Dixon. He'll be entering the 4th grade. So I'm an active community member in Embudo, Velarde, Dixon. So I know a lot of teachers and networking and communications here. And my son, Stevan, if any of you know, which Kayo and Rosalie know, my son basically grew up in the library. So I think it's an important part of the community. So I just thought, thank you very much for inviting me. And I thought maybe I could be an active participant in some role in the community in some fashion to support what you do all. Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Great. I think you need to.
Uh-oh, we can't hear you. Mm-mm. Sometimes when you first log in to Zoom, it might ask you like for microphone permission or something like that. And sometimes it helps to leave and come back into the meeting.
Okay. Will we come back to Tony?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Who would like to be next?
I can go.
Filiberto Ortiz. I live here in Dixon. I'm raising my daughter over here, just trying to be an active member of our community. See what I could put in and move forward to help the community.
Great. Thank you, Miguel Angel. Who's next?
We have Miguel Angel Ortiz.
Yeah, my name's Miguel Angel Ortiz. I'm from Peñasco. I'm pretty involved with the community. I'm the director of Mas Comunidad, which I'm pretty sure some of you guys have heard of. Yeah, I also work with the unions. So I'm the regional field representative and organizer for Northern New Mexico. So I work with the higher eds, I work with the K-12s. And yeah, Darren invited me to come and I figured, yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, Rebecca and me have a good working relationship. She's on our board. Darren and me have a good working relationship with the union. I hope you guys bring Filiberto on board because he's my uncle and yeah, he gets shit done. So I'm pretty excited.
Thank you. Let's see. Tony? Is Tony,
He might have logged off to log back in. Let's see.
oh, okay. Okay, anyone else? Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself briefly? Okay. Well, welcome, everyone. And thanks to those of you who responded to the call to sit in on a meeting to kind of see what it's all about, and then we can have further conversations. Is Tony connected?
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I'm sorry that took a while. I have a hard time with technology. Hi, I'm Tony Oviedo. Some of you may know me. I've lived in the area since about 2004. I'm now a retired police officer. I used to be a state police officer and a sergeant up in, well, working in Espanola, and then up in Taos was the end of my career. So for years, I was like the Dixon police officer, and I'd sit on the bench out there with Clovis and the guys. And I don't know, I recognize most everybody on the screen from just hanging out with Dixon. And then the librarians would probably know me because I have the 4 daughters, the Oviedos, that are always in and out, and we're always late on our books. And so you probably have a whole list of Oviedos that are late on our books.
Thank you, Tony. Welcome. Did we
Thank you,
miss?
Marcia.
Yeah, did we miss anyone? Okay. Then the next agenda item is our communication agreement. Rachel, would you also read that, remind us?
Yeah. Everyone that is here is welcome, has an important contribution to make, and belongs here. We ask that we all practice kindness and generosity with one another. Be curious, listen with compassion, and understand that making mistakes is not only normal, but necessary. We do these things to foster a feeling of safety.
Thank you. The next agenda item is called the round table check-in. And we often just say something about, how we're doing, maybe what's a little bit about maybe what's been going on in our life that brings us to this moment. Let's see, who would like to start?
I'll go first. Life is good because the heat wave, I think, is at its end, and I'm feeling the relief. Right now, I think it's raining outside here in Apalaca, which is really good for our apples.
Yes, thank you. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
My 2 older daughters are preparing to head back to school next week. So we're trying to do some last fun stuff together and get school clothes shopping done. And I also wanted to say that I really liked a couple weeks ago, President Obama gave a letter to librarians thanking them, and in reference to the banned books, the book banning that's happening right now. And it was awesome. So if you haven't read it, look it up.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, that's a wonderful letter. I'm doing well. I just got back from some days in Colorado at a lake, and it was very cool there, and it reminded me of how cool it could be. But it's always so good to get home. I love coming home to New Mexico and to Dixon, and I'm always reminded of that every time I leave. And my grandson, Ezra, is staying with me for 3 days, and he's about 13. So I get to just have a little corner of his life with his Dixon friends. And it's a treat. They cook a little bit for him. So who else would like to check in? Rosalia, would you like to?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am literally just back from a turn and burn mission to Albuquerque today. Went to go visit some people and hit up the all important Costco. Yeah, so my day has been gratitude the minute I turned back into northern New Mexico and felt the cooler temperature. And I'm very, very fortunate that I don't live in Albuquerque anymore. And I'm grateful for the reminder when I do go and visit that this is home, and it always will be.
Great. Kyle?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing really good. Got to go to the river for a little bit today, which is great. Summer has been busy. And we finally finished our summer reading program, which was a success. And I don't know if you already know, but I actually gave in my 2 weeks at the library, and I'll be moving on to work full-time with the Penhasco Theater, which I have been working for almost 20 years now, so it's pretty much home. And yeah, this is a big change. And I'm gonna miss everyone. Not gonna get too much into it, otherwise there'll be tears. But yeah, so I'm doing great. I'm getting ready for the new step, and it's been a wonderful time for sure. Very challenging sometimes and very wonderful most of the time. Thank you.
We appreciate your service, Kyle. Yeah, best wishes on your continue to work with the theater.
Yeah. Same here, Kyle. Yes, you brought such joy to those programs and touched so many lives. Thank you so much. And I hope you're not a stranger in the library. You won't be too far away up there in Penhasco. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kaio. What you took on with the help of Annette and Rosalia with the summer reading program, running it like a day camp model. My 2 daughters attended and they loved it and looked forward to it so much. And I think it's just awesome that you took that on and you tried something new. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, would anybody else like to check in?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing
Rachel?
well. We're doing a lot at home. And we also have been super busy at the library with the summer camp and there have been a lot of other events happening as well. It's been a really eventful summer so far, and we're excited to have all of that stuff happening again. It kind of feels like we're taking the next step to kind of getting back after COVID. And Annette is off today, so she is not with us today.
Thank you. If there's no one else who wants to check in, one last call. I call for an approval of the agenda.
Marcia, because we do have a packed agenda and we're limited to 2 hours duration for the meeting, I'm wondering if when we get to the reports section and the agenda, if any of our questions have not been answered, that those be up for discussion. That might help speed along the agenda items.
Or limited by 2 hours. What do you mean, Darren?
Our board meeting is scheduled for 7 to 9 o'clock.
Like the Zoom link?
Well, it's always been the board's practice to end at 9.
I don't think we're going to end at 9.
We may need to consider moving some agenda items to our August meeting or a special board meeting then. Only because I have a hard cutoff at 9.
And we have an executive session.
Yeah.
So down at new and continuing businesses, how do you want to handle it? The two of you, we can, yeah.
Do we have someone from the Fiesta committee to provide us an update?
Rachel,
Unless one of these two folks that are joining via phone are from the Fiesta Committee, I don't believe we have anyone that took us up on that invitation.
Okay. And was it being placed on the agenda purposeful for someone from the committee to do the update, or was that going to be your update, Rachel?
I had asked for it to be on the agenda to hear what the plans are for the upcoming Fiesta, which is happening before our next scheduled board meeting.
Okay. Are you comfortable providing an update on that, Rachel?
I have very little to say about it. We haven't really been involved in the preparations, but I could say something.
Okay.
Well, shall we proceed and then see how far we get? After the reports into our new and continuing business.
Okay.
And leaving at least 15 minutes for the executive session.
Okay,
Does that sound good?
sure. So I move to approve the agenda.
Second,
I agree. Is there anyone opposed of the three of us? Okay, agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes, those are 3 different minutes. Rebecca, did you have a chance to look at those?
yes, I did. There was just one of the set of minutes, I think it was April 13th. It was just a single, sorry, I'm pulling it up. That was not it. Probably the July 12th one, there was a duplicate comma. That's the only thing that needs to be changed. However, the emergency board meeting minutes, I had some things to correct. In that, just with who made the motion and what it was for, and what was said after we exited executive session. But the main thing was that right now in those minutes, a list of recommendations are listed. However, during the actual meeting, those were discussed during closed session. So I don't think that they would actually be listed here because it's listing them after we exited the closed session. And we did not recommend or say those things to people who were in the meeting. So I don't think that those belong there. They're actually closed session notes.
Did you make those corrections already, Rebecca?
Yeah, I guess so, yes.
Okay. So can I make the motion to approve the special board meeting on July 12th as amended?
Yes, and the one I'm referring to is May 15th. So
Okay.
for July 12th, May 15th as amended, April approve. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, so we'll start with the May 15th. I move to approve them as amended. Second by who?
Me.
Okay. And then the April 13th. I move to approve those meeting minutes.
Oh, sorry, Darren, to interrupt. Yes, after that board meeting, I had added stuff into the minutes that night after we got off the meeting. So I guess this one would be approved as amended as well.
Okay. You want to second that?
Yes, second that.
Okay. And then the July 12th meeting, that one was also amended, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so you made the motion.
Yep.
I second that.
Okay. And for Marcia and Rachel and Rebecca's sake, I'm doing the best that I can with entering the minutes, meeting minutes on the actual agenda, so that, I don't know if you're following it or not.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you so much. Okay, community input. Are there any community members attending who would like to provide input to the board? Okay, if not, let's move on to the reports. So did everybody have a chance to read the librarian report?
Yes. I
Yes.
did- I have the trend of the numbers at the library still not returning to pre-pandemic levels in terms of the numbers that are being reported on the librarian report. I was interested in hearing from the librarians why they think that is, because we're out a ways from the pandemic and I are not seeing the numbers bounce back up.
So in the days that I'm here, I think it's just kind of a little bit of a lack of engagement with the community. I don't think that we've got a whole lot of programs going on. We get good attendance on like events that we do, like Kayo, we had really good summer reading program, but Kayo really did a lot of work in like reaching out, personally making invitations. For the events that I've hosted, like, not just doing like Facebook and social media, but like reaching out and checking in with people. But we're not doing a whole lot of other things to really engage the community in. So it's hard to have them want to spontaneously walk into a place. I mean, yes, we've got great books and all, but we need a little more to bring them in. At least that's my opinion. Kyle?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, as far, I'm lately, I've been more in the library doing the program, so I'm not really doing a lot of the librarian hours anymore. I do agree with you, Rosalia, 100%. I think that we do need maybe more events or more something that will like motivate the community to be involved, to be part of the library, because it's, it is the hub of the community. It doesn't feel much like a hub right now. So I think that yeah, I completely agree with you. And can I say one thing that has nothing to do with that? I forgot to say that I'm also interested in being part of the board. So I just wanted to put it out there. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for the feedback. I think looking at how the library can be relevant or make themselves relevant would be a good thing to look to, because it feels like the data from the librarians is saying that it's not recovering. And the other thing, in terms of Kayo, when is your last date with the library?
August 16th.
Okay. I think in the pattern that we had with Felicity, when she left, we did an exit interview. The board should do an exit interview with Kayo before that date.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, we'll schedule. Okay, again, I'd like to really thank Rosalia and Kayo for some excellent children's programming that has taken place, and some other programming having to do with readings and informational ones. So I thank you very much.
You're irreplaceable, Kyle. as a coworker, as an amiga, as someone who really like jumped into this community and like embraced the cultura and embraced it. Like it's gonna be tough to be here without you, girl. I'm gonna miss you a lot.
Ay, chica. Gracias, mi amor.
De nada.
Un beso.
Okay, the La Segunda report. I know that Annette is out of town, but any questions about that?
Just a comment. I mean, I really appreciate Annette's can-do attitude. You know, she's always she recognizes or acknowledges the issues that she's faced with or that the store's faced with, but is very eager to find solutions, and I appreciate that.
Okay, and then the executive director report mentioning the financials and the construction update. There was some discussion online, but any questions for Rachel?
Well, in doing the ED report, I'd like to the minutes to reflect that I feel like we're not getting enough updates in the last calendar year. We've had 3 ED reports, and this one we've had 3 brief email updates. And I feel like it's hard to stay in the loop and updated, have a pulse on what's going on at the library. And to have information sooner than we're getting it. It feels important for the board to be able to do their job and to do their fiduciary responsibilities. And in terms of, there's a section in the ED report that is regarding communication from the community about concerns about the overall organization and transparency. And I know that an idea of Rachel's was to do a short newsletter. So I wanted to know more about how, if we're trying to be transparent, in what ways are we trying to be transparent, and how does the newsletter address that?
Well, a newsletter would just create more communication with the community. Right now, they're not getting a lot that comes out. Like, you know, Carnelian has a newsletter, Co-op has a newsletter. They're not getting anything like that from the library. And what was happening with me is I frequently get busy, and that gets put on the back burner. And what I'm talking about is making it more of a priority and just updating them on ways that they can engage with the library, what we're doing, what we've got going on, updates on the construction, things like that.
How would it be distributed?
I honestly haven't given it a whole lot of thought yet, but it would probably start out as a mass email with some paper copies floating around the community in a few key areas.
So people just want to know more about what's happening at the library. Is that your feel?
That is my feel. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So another thing I noticed in the section about programming that you mentioned that there's been different events and the possibility of board stepping in to work at evening events so that staff don't have to work late. As a board member, I'm already putting a lot of time into this position, so I can't volunteer to do that, but I'm wondering if there are some other solutions. If the issue is that there's not like funds to compensate for working those extra hours, or if it's just unavailability, like how many evening events are happening. that you all are having to staff?
Well, I'll try to answer that as best I can. Let me know if I'm missing the mark, though. Yeah, I mean, the evening events are a really core part of what we do. It's important to the community. And it seems like those are back, and it's a wonderful thing. It's really good. We have some amazing stuff going on. I think staff have an amount of time that they can spend on the job. It's a part-time job, and sometimes they're able to step in and help out, and sometimes they're not, and that's totally fine. So what happens, it's not about extra funds, it's about time. So if no one else is able to do it, either I do it if I can, and that means that I'm not doing something else. And it means that well, I mean, I think that once the community center opens up, it's going to change a little bit, because that's part of what is different right now. Before, we used to be able to just give people a key and they would come and just have their event and do their meeting, even if it was after hours. But right now, with them being in the library, it's just a little bit, I'm not really comfortable with doing that in the library itself. So yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah, so you're able to cover when staff members can't cover, like with the author talks that have been happening? Or
I believe the author talks have all been on Saturdays, and so Rosalia is covering those, and that has been no small feat, especially the one last Saturday. The talks that are in the things that are in the evening right now are, we have an archaeology talk, we had a geology talk, and we had an Asakia film screening that I organized. So I was fully prepared to cover that one. Yeah, so I mean, it's you know, it would be nice if you know, if others are available to help out with that, it would be wonderful. But if it's not, it's okay. I'll make it work.
Thank you for your response, Rachel.
Yeah, I would like to say that I'm often here, and I'd be glad, I haven't been to a lot of them this summer, but I would be glad to make time to be called upon.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else with the executive director reports?
We need to approve the financial statements, and I'm prepared to make the motion. Rachel, thank you for answering my one question on that financial statement. It clarified it. So I move to approve the financial statements as presented.
I second.
Are we going to hear information after about the Fiesta finances that were going to be answered during the financial discussion?
I mean, that should be part of the discussion as part of the motion, because the Fiesta's finances did show up on the financial statement.
Yeah, I'm not saying not to approve it. I'm just saying that I'm asking because that was supposed to get covered.
Yes, I mean, so after the motion and it's been approved, we can have a discussion about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. I second, and then we'll follow with a discussion about okay. Is there any disapproving, or shall we approve the financials?
Yes, approve.
Okay. Approved. Okay, so the discussion about the Fiesta financials. What questions would you like to ask? You want to, I'm not looking at them right now. I don't know what the line item is there, but do you have that, Darren, what the line item is for them?
I'm gonna bring that up now.
So
Let's see.
it wasn't about the line item. It was questions I had emailed to Rachel. Should I pull them up and I can read them here?
Sure.
Okay, give me a minute. Okay, so the questions that I emailed Rachel was to find out if any grants have ever been applied for to support the Fiestas work, if the grants were awarded, who was the funder, when was it awarded, the specific amount, and did our organization have an admin fee on any of the funds that have been received through the Fiesta Committee, and if so, the dates and the amount.
Rachel?
Well, I guess my question is, I'm not sure why this level of detail is needed. If the board is, what the board is thinking as far as Fiestas go. I don't have answers to those questions. That would involve some pretty deep digging. I do know that there has been a fiscal sponsor fee applied to Fiestas. It's been very inconsistent. And from my discussion with Felicity, there's it seems like it was never really resolved whether Fiesta's program or fiscal sponsorship, and so it's a bit up in the air. Involved in the coming year, certainly not now. They're pretty busy at the moment. But yeah, I mean, if the board would like a detailed report regarding all Fiesta finances, I would be happy to ask Taya to do that, but I'm curious why that would be needed.
So in the April board meeting, in your report, you talked about the Taya had researched if the fiscal sponsorship idea and whether it was a program or not. So at that time, I asked for information about the Fiestas and then emailed specific questions. So if it requires deep digging, and I asked in May, it would be good to know earlier, right, that what that would require, or that you could take the time to do that so I could have the information. Because right now, you know, when Annette is working as part of that committee, they're fundraising out of their own pocket. And if there's funds, or if there's supposed to be funds, I think that it would be the right thing that they know, you know, what's available, so they're not paying out of pocket for things.
Okay. Rachel, could, so to move forward with it, it would just, you know, the Fiestas haven't happened in what, 3 years? And it would be looking back, you know, before Rachel was here. And so are you wanting clarification on whether the one that we've already always asked, is it a program of the library, or are we just fiscal sponsor, or both, and the difference of, you know, what that means?
I mean, we talked about that in the April board meeting. It was in regards to what kind of grant funding specifically for that program or that sponsorship or whatever. And I think QuickBooks would be able to reflect the money that's come in and out of their account, and a report could be run that way.
Okay, is that possible, Rachel?
I can ask Taya.
Okay, yeah, to track just the movement in that account and over, say, the last 5 years or something. Or,
Yeah, and in the April board meeting and the email, I asked if Tay could be asked to check these things out.
Rachel, who is your point of contact with the Fiestas? Do you have one person or is it?
Fiestas basically operate independently of the library.
Right,
Don't function as a program of the library. I talk to Annette, sometimes I talk to Charlotte, sometimes I talk to Ramona, sometimes occasionally I talk to Roberta, but not very often. So they're just kind of, they're like the, there's groups of people that hold events at the library and it's all volunteer based.
mhm.
And we just kind of provide the space. And that is very much how Fiestas function, except for the whole money part, us handling their money for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good example of where we may want to engage our CPA for some kind of languaged template document that we execute with any entity that's wanting to use us as a fiscal sponsor, so that there's a clear description of what their roles and responsibilities are and what our organization's role and responsibilities are, so that these questions don't keep coming up.
Yeah, we have a fiscal sponsorship policy and a fiscal sponsorship agreement that were board approved, I believe, in 2020. Are they adequate? Probably not. They probably need some, they need to be edited probably and improved. I will tell you that Taya and I have both tried to tease out all of our fiscal sponsorships and try to make sense of them. And it has been a challenge, and we have made some progress. But it's an area that the library, we need to clean up just in general. And the Fiestas is just one example of that.
great. Thank you. Rebecca, is that to proceed with looking at all fiscal sponsorships and report on it and review the policies and improve the policies?
I mean, I can email my questions to Rachel, the ones that I read about grant funding and the admin fee. And I know that when we talked in April about fiscal sponsorship in relation to Fiestas, as I met with Taya in the capacity of Moss organization, we recently talked about fiscal sponsorship and models for that and how it works in terms of if there's a lot of ways that you're treating something like a program, you're using information from something in your own grant applications, then that is like your program. But if like there's she provided me with a document that talks about who basically has ownership of the results, who can use, like, is the Fiesta committee able to go apply for their own grant funding, or if the library is using the results of the Fiesta for their grant funding, then it would help define that it's actually a program of the library. So it feels important that, that get figured out. That's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking for what grants they've received and when, the amounts, or if grants were applied for, and also to know the amounts that the library was, the admin fee for that.
Okay. Rachel, is that possible?
I believe that some to a certain extent that is possible. Yes.
Good.
I've still, I still question the level of detail that's being requested. It's going to take a bit of time. And again, that is, if that level of detail can be scaled back a little bit. I mean, we have Taya 1 day a week, sometimes 2 days a week. Sometimes they're not full days. And, you know, I just want to make sure that she's able to do all of her other things, and to dig that deeply is pretty time consuming.
Well, could a report be run from that specific account?
I don't think so.
Okay, so you
I
can't.
think that there's a whole file and it's a mess.
Uh-huh.
It's something that we need to work on. Like I said.
Rebecca, if I could add to that, add to the answer to your question. Running a report from that account, I take it as the account within QuickBooks. And their QuickBooks chart of accounts has evolved so much between Felicity and Rachel that I don't think that the accounts have alignments anymore from history. And I think that would be the biggest challenge for Rachel and her bookkeeper to try and find that alignment and research that. That's pretty extensive work.
Okay, to find out if there's been grant funding for fiestas. How
Well-
about I meet with Taya and Rachel and I can express my questions, and then Taya can help know if that's possible or not.
Yeah, and when you say if there was grant funding, the library's knowledge would only be that of money that was requested of the Fiesta Committee to be processed through our account. So we wouldn't necessarily know if it's sales proceeds from the fiestas for next year's fiestas, or if it was in a form of a grant. That I think that's why this templated document, along with the revised policy, would help shape that for us, so that we have a better understanding of the source of that money that's being asked of us to be a fiscal sponsor of.
Yeah, and in QuickBooks you label what the money is for. Like, you're not just dropping amounts, you know. So I'd like to do that, to meet
Okay.
with Rachel and Taya, and then let Taya know what my questions are, and she can say what she thinks about the possibilities of that before proceeding.
I think it would be fine if you just, if I just talk with Taya and let you know.
Okay, then I will email the questions I read to you and Taya.
You can email them to me.
Okay, and I think we've reached a plan in answering that, and in looking at the time, we're about to enter in. Is there any lasting question or comment on Executive Director reports? Okay. So we don't have an update on the Fiesta Committee. Next is the Prospero report. We've got basically it's about 8 o'clock. So we've got about 35 more minutes before we go into executive session, 35 or 40. So the Prospero report. Pardon me?
No, you're good, Marsha. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so did the other two board members have a chance to read that report?
I did, and my recommendation is that we do not spend time on reviewing all the documents that they have provided us as suggested documents, descriptions. I think there are policies, organizational chart, until we can have either at our next regular board meeting an agenda item that allows us to start reviewing drafted policies, organizational charts, or that we hold a special board meeting to review those documents.
Okay. Then, yeah, then we'll decide whether it needs a special board meeting or whether it can be on this meeting. Right?
Yeah, I also agree that, as Rachel had proposed, it be put into the August meeting, the documents, specific discussion. I think that makes sense. So we don't need to discuss them. I do definitely have a perspective on Prospera's work in their final report. They the funding that paid for us to do this work is the McCune, the Santa Fe Community Foundation grant. These are grants that talk about DEI work in the organization, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Grant, the grant language talks about having the voice of people of color, that they're heard, not that just that they have a seat at the table, and about reimagining our work, rethinking our goals, re-engaging our community with the principles of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice at the heart of every decision. This is language that got used in the applications, and that we can develop into an organization that will more clearly reflect and is a more effective collaborator with our entire community. And I don't feel like that's how the funds got used for Prospera's, the work with Prospera. I think it's turned out to be an improper use of the grant funds. I feel concerned about how we will be able to report the work that's been done with them and how it meets the proposed DEI work. The report makes reference to them having an equitable, inclusive process, and I do not feel like it was equitable and inclusive. We had a contract that we drafted together in April, and then they did a survey of the board, the staff, with anonymous submission to them, and then they provided us a report. So we did the contract in April. They gave us the survey analysis, had some recommendations about the organization, and it feels like they kind of just dropped out of supporting us at that point. And I spent time in my survey response talking about a perspective that I don't feel like got reflected in the end results of what we received from them or in how the contract got amended. I was just able to view the amended contract that was signed after I requested it from Rachel this month. And I just would not recommend working with them. I don't think that they brought a DEI lens to the organization. And I don't know that in the reporting or in our chances with McCune or Santa Fe Community Foundation, if we're not able to show that we're doing what is proposed in the grant, that we'll be able to continue to qualify for funds. And I think that, when I spoke with the board, along with Rosalia almost a couple of years ago, I talked about my concerns about language getting used in grants, about serving certain communities, certain demographics, doing work that actually doesn't end up getting reflected in what the funds get used for. And that's what I was talking about. Like what happened here is what I was talking about when I brought that up. Like it's what was used in the grant proposal were ideas that were products of the DEI committee meeting together, coming up with ideas. The fingerprint of the committee is in the grant application, but there was no voice once the contract got amended. The documents that were drafted, those are good documents for the organization. I'm curious of how those got prioritized because they seem very focused on defining the roles of the board And after Prospera received the survey responses, I think that that for them to recommend that the work be spent on drafting documents that define the role of the board, it's surprising that the survey results would cause them to recommend only those things. And what about any types of inclusive processes or more equitable ways of the library existing in the community, with programming or with like structure within internally. And I like to know that in the future with the rest of the funds that there could be more of a way that the direction of the funds gets determined in a more inclusive process, that it doesn't end up getting amended very quickly over email with no discussion, and the focus got very narrowed. So that's part of my perspective that I wanted to share about Prospera and their final report.
If I could add my perspective, I understand where you're coming from, Rebecca. I do know that even though it was rushed, we did approve the amended contract. And the language on that amended contract was that it be inclusive of leadership development of the ED and the board president. And that created an umbrella for potential outcomes of that work with the board president and the ED. And I saw these proposed documents as some of those outcomes, even though they may have appeared to look like very board centered. But I wasn't there to be part of the conversations that occurred between Prospera and the ED and the president, but I took those documents as being one of the outcomes of the work that they did with the ED and the president.
Yeah, I definitely see them as outcomes of the work. And we're able to look at the training or the topics of what Rachel did when I'm going to just call it a log, her training log, that I asked for and was given last week of what topics have been covered. So for example, like conflict management, facilitation have been covered. That how is that showing up in the organization? Is there, or maybe let me say what my question is. What kinds of things, Rachel, are you implementing as a result of the work you've done with Prospera?
Well, I actually think that the work that was done with Prospera has, honestly, the newsletter is their idea. They were one step ahead of me in like saying, okay, you guys are dealing with all of this stuff. Now you need, and you're in the midst of that, you need to think about how you're going to communicate with the community. And because right now they're not engaged at all. So that's one example. And I'd be happy to give that some thought and provide you with more information. The work that we did has probably infiltrated many of the ways that I show up at the library every single day. And the honest truth is that it was extremely difficult to even get to the point where we're talking about engaging community and changing structures and things like that, because we have been dealing with all of this other stuff, and that became the priority. And if we had not had their support, I don't know how we would have gotten through it, to be honest with you. It was extremely important that we had their help. And no, they're not perfect. They are humans just like us. And I recognize that. I didn't take every single recommendation point blank and just implement, but I learned a lot, and I found it valuable, and we honestly really needed their help in the ways that they helped us.
Okay,
I'm,
go ahead.
it wasn't from my perspective, brown woman on the board, I did not find it inclusive. And I feel like this is the type of thing I've been trying to draw attention to, that fits with how I'm experiencing it, which was not being part of the conversation and not feeling like it was, the contract we talked about in April was going to be bigger. It was going to include all board, all staff. That's not how it played out. And that's disappointing. And I don't like that the funds went and were used in that way. I can appreciate that it was professional development that was useful to you, and I don't question that. I think it could have been applied broader to the entire organization.
Okay. So do we have a resolution about ways to move forward with your questions and to continue the discussion? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Rachel. And Darren. The next one I'm going to is Darren, I had you down for this. It's looking at our review of the executive director, long overdue. And what would you like to say about our annual review, which would now be a biannual review going on?
You're talking about the executive director and board expectations document that we worked on. I think that it's still premature to present that. My apologies. I didn't see the added comments to the document until this afternoon. So, and I have a few questions that I'd like to be answered before I would make the recommendation that it's something that we present.
Okay. Then there is the discussion about board procedures and drafting, posting, and developing the agenda. Those go back to Open Meetings Act and ways that are required as far as timing of posting the notice of the meeting and the agenda and where and so on that one, Rebecca, do you have a specific discussion you want to have about that?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the process is for by when we can submit agenda items. And there's an easier way between the board and the director to be able to see what's being suggested, so that it's like, okay, someone already said this, or someone's putting this on. Maybe we don't have time for the thing that I'm wanting to talk about. A more inclusive process where in the drafting of it, and then also, you know, how is the decision made about who makes the decision about what gets put on the agenda. Like right now for July, it worked where we were able to say, these are the things we'd like, and they'd get listed. Is that going to be a standard thing? where we're able to do that, and can we have like a deadline, right? Like if we're going to always be meeting for regular board meetings on the fourth Thursday of the month, that we know, by the third Monday of the month or whatever, like that we can send agenda items on an email that we're all included on. And then at what date is the draft available? Meeting agendas, the final version has to be posted 72 hours at the least. And so also just, if the agenda needs to be revised, that there's time to do that before we're reaching that 72-hour mark. Those are some of the things that I was wondering about or wanting to establish.
Would that be part of our bylaws that we would have to modify? Do the bylaws drive that?
The bylaws don't say anything about agendas. That would currently, that feels more like a policy procedure type thing. This is outlining how we do it. This is the process.
Yeah, I know that our current bylaws don't speak to that, but it almost seems to me that bylaws have to drive that. I could be wrong, but I mean, it's a question to ask, legal counsel or an HR consultant. But it seems to me that bylaws drive those kind of processes.
Yeah, well, we've wanted to review the bylaws, but it seems like it could be a policy or a procedure, for creating the agenda. I think we have, and I don't know where it's written, said something like, the chair of the board and the executive director will get together and do the first draft. But, we can look at where that is mentioned and see if it needs to be in a policy or procedure or the bylaws. And and make it practice.
So would it be possible, Rachel, you are the one that drafts the agenda based on what people give you, or like, I'm just trying to figure out by when do we give you what we'd like on the agenda, or what does that look like? Like heading into the August meeting, what would that look like?
Normally the agenda is drafted by Marcia and myself based on what we perceive needs to be addressed. And I know that some of the stuff that I learned and is in some of those documents from the Prospera stuff, it talks about an executive committee. I mean, we don't have to figure this out right now, but it does talk about how frequently in a nonprofit, the executive committee, which is people who hold like an office on the board, and then the ED, they have a meeting where they put it together. And but I mean, honestly, you guys can figure out any way you want how to do that. I would prefer to be able to show, I think for all of our sake and getting ready for the board meeting, and for the sake of the community, I think it'd be really wonderful to have an agenda available to everyone earlier than just 72 hours. Like, I feel like, I mean, yeah, that's the legal requirement, but if we could have it earlier than that, I think that would be great. And what I see is the board communicating with Marcia, the board president, what they would like to see on the agenda. And as far as I'm concerned, that can be done at any time, but you guys can figure that out. It's just a matter of what works for you and what is sustainable, and not, making it harder than it needs to be. I think that if everyone is involved in making those decisions, it actually can be easier. Because then we're going to be addressing the things that the board wants to address. I know that was like a long-winded answer. I would like to have, I mean, I try to get the packet to you guys and putting that packet together is very time consuming. And I like to have it to you at least so you have it by the Friday before the board meeting, so you have a weekend to look at it. But that packet is driven by the agenda. so some, if it's good to have it settled, I would say at least a week in advance. And if it could be a little bit more than a week in advance, that would be really, really helpful. But for the sake of the community, I think they would like to see it, probably when we advertise the meeting. But if that's not feasible, then I would understand.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yes.
Is most of your organization, the meetings based off of Robert's rules? Because Robert's rules has formats for setting the agenda for the next meeting. For example, if somebody wants to talk about something next time, you just have to make a motion for it, and then it just has to be seconded, and then it's automatically put on the next agenda. Or you can do rules that say that for something to be placed on the agenda, you just need two of your members to support it, and then it has to be put on the agenda to be talked about. And so it seems like you guys are already following a lot of Robert's rules. You guys could just adopt that for the agenda, and then there wouldn't be so many questions about it.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's...
Yeah. Okay, then, we followed something this time, but it didn't, that was going on the idea that just 72 hours beforehand, we have to have a settled agenda. And all board members were able to do suggestions either through me or directly to Rachel, but it's probably easier. So why don't we just say that our aim will be to have that done by a week before the meeting instead of 3 days. And to do that, if we back up from there, then all the board's ideas for what should be on the agenda could come to me 8 days beforehand, and then or maybe it needs to be even more, because we have standing agenda items, we have the reports and so on. But should we look at that and put out some suggestions, and then we could follow it next time?
Yeah,
Good idea.
I think just the outline of by when would this need to be, by when could a draft be out? I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to look at a draft if I already knew what was going to be on it, but in the past, the first time I'd see the final agenda or the agenda was from the town crier when it got listed there. And so right now with only 3 board members, and I feel like some of the suggestions I had about what went on the agenda got lost in translation. I'm not seeing why we can't just have an inclusive email with all 3 of us and Rachel saying, this is what I'd like on the agenda. And then it's clear what the response is. And if there's a question of clarification, because it's like, okay, I told Marcia this, but I looked at the agenda and it listed this way, but that's not what I was asking for. And so that's just taking up time that could be shortened if we just had all of us on the same email.
What if we had like a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc that lived in the board shared drive? And this is just I don't know if this would actually be helpful or not, but but to help with the email amounts. What if there was just a shared document that we had where, board could write their suggestions for, and it could even be for like, it could be a long list and maybe we just select, we end up prioritizing and stuff. But it could be just like a shared brainstorm suggestion document of agenda items.
Yeah, that could work. If there's kind of a discussion, right, where it's not just like, okay, I don't know what's going to be chosen and what's not. Like there's a little bit of communication with that would be great.
Sure. Then I think, yeah, and I guess if there needed to be direct communication, then I think, I don't know, Marcia, you would have to get in touch with board members and ask them for clarification or have that conversation, or you guys could get in touch with her to discuss it.
Yeah, I like that idea, putting it up as a shared doc, 10 days maybe before we need to, if we're going to get the agenda out a week before the meeting, then we could have that up with, again, it follows, there's some repeating agenda items and some others that are new. So then we could all add our ideas to that, put it together and see if it would fly. Does that sound good?
Does the agenda get physically posted or like where at?
I think it currently gets posted in the post office and on Town Crier.
And in at the library, the bulletin board in front of the library and on the library website.
Okay. Is it possible to standardize, like a reminder goes out to the Town Crier, so that it's a reminder announcement the day of the meeting that links to the agenda, like as a standardized process? Because sometimes it's listed and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I think Lou almost always does that, collects things that are for the day and says this is what's happening today, but we can remind him. Okay, anything else on that? Cool. Recruitment of new board members. This is one of our first steps in doing that, to asking friends that we know of in the community to join us. And our next steps will be to, we have a board packet, would be, I guess, to have individual conversations with those of you who attended and see if you have interest in continuing with us. So how do the other two of you see continuing with the recruitment process with those who have been willing to step up?
Well, Marcia, at our last board meeting, I think we agreed that we would invite a guest, a potential board member to this meeting. Let them sit in on this meeting, and if they still have interest in joining the board, that they would attend the August regular board meeting to state whether or not they do want to join the board or not. So with that being said, Rebecca also had a recommendation to explore the possibility of providing some type of incentive to board members for their volunteerism, not just at these regular and special board meetings, but functions that the library puts on. And I'll let Rebecca speak more to that.
So at the last board meeting, I read the bylaws section about compensation, and we thought maybe it was broad enough to cover compensation, and maybe, well, when I read it afterwards, I thought, I don't feel like the language allows for that. So I don't know if we would either need to say, okay, we need to call it something else, or if we actually need to consider changing the wording in the bylaw to put to the members in the annual meeting in September. And I did look through language of other places that do compensation of board members. I mean, if we did change the bylaws, it's just changing it to say compensation. And I don't know if that's where we would like put the amount, or we just say it's allowed, and then we have like a policy for writing the amount. Like, these are kind of things I'm just not sure how to go about doing it. And I don't know, like, Darren, if you would be able to advise on that, or if that's like something more that, you know, we'd ask HR consultant or legal counsel, like, how can you help us set this up so that some of the McCune funds can go toward offering this to board members.
Yeah, I can definitely look into that, Rebecca. I know that the word stipend is used more often than compensation. I think our legislators get stipends, not a salary. That's how they get to have their salary. It's all in the language. But yeah, I'll look into it. I'll look at what other nonprofits who use this as a practice, how they've set that up, whether it's through policy or bylaws.
Okay, and I did do some checking around. I did not find an example of a local nonprofit that does this. But what I did find, I was actually looking at the rural electric co-ops that are in the area, Kit Carson, Hemis, and Mora. They have it in their bylaws where they list that it's done for board members. So I don't know, that's a start of information for you. So maybe what we could plan to do is just follow up on this in August, because it would be great if it's, you know, something that could be decided by the September's annual meeting.
Good
Okay.
idea.
Yeah. Okay, it's 8:30. The items we have left are the board and staff communication policy, which we're looking at that on shared drive and questioning and looking at what we can do. So it's not really ready to present. I suggest we continue working on that on shared drive. And then Darren, the idea of putting as a priority, perhaps after the annual meeting, the executive director annual evaluation.
Yeah, I know that we currently have an evaluation tool in-house. I don't recall what that looks like or what all that in its contents are. Rachel, I don't know if that's an electronic evaluation form that you have available that you can share with us, but I think we need to explore an evaluation tool that properly provides the evaluation we need to do of the executive director, certainly the feedback. I'm not sure that we have that tool yet.
Well, we have the evaluation we used every year with Felicity.
Yeah, and I think that there were some concerns about that one, that evaluation tool. I think that it was missing some components. But I think it's, you know, if our goal is to have the evaluation done by the end of the annual meeting or soon after that, I think we need to start reviewing the current evaluation form, make a decision on whether or not we want to use that form. If the answer is no, then we have to look at alternatives.
Yeah.
There was an evaluation form that was sent for the October board meeting that was canceled. So I did look at that tool. I don't know if that's the one that was used in the past, but I didn't think it was adequate. It covers a lot of stuff, but I feel like some of it just kind of lumped into single statements where you're rating multiple things, you know, on a scale of whatever it is, like on scale of 1 to 5, rate this whole bullet point that has like 4 different things, and it's hard to say, okay, well, which one am I evaluating? Is it this thing or this thing? Because it's listing both. And maybe the numbers would be different if they were separated into separate bullet points. So I don't like the current, the one that was proposed in October that's in the shared drive that we didn't yet discuss.
I agree, and I think there's probably some great examples out there that we would like more. So it could be up to each one of us to look at those and share them and perhaps come to a decision by September. Maybe
Okay.
share-
I wonder, I don't recall the board source had tools like that or not.
I would
Yeah,
guess that
They do.
but I haven't specifically checked for that.
Okay.
I mean, why don't we at least come up with the dates now with how we want this to go? Like by what date do we want to have agreed on the tool that's going to be used? And how can this be an inclusive process for the director to, to have a say in what's in the tool, or to know what's going to be asked?
Right. So can I recommend that we identify and agree to a tool by the next regular board meeting, which is August? We set the third Thursday of the month,
fourth.
fourth.
So,
So 1,
August
2, 3, 4,
24th.
24th.
Okay. I had decided on the tool by August 24th. Okay, does that sound good?
So we'll have email communication with ideas for the tool before.
Yeah, or sample tools that we can eventually get to a point where we agree with the tool that we want to use.
Okay, and Rachel, I'm trying to create more on your plate, but if you would like to, please feel like you can submit ideas for tools too. It doesn't need to exclude you. You also don't have to, do it. That's how I feel. I don't know how Darren and Marcia feel.
I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because I do want the tool, my preference to be twofold, in that it allows for the ED to also contribute to the evaluation.
Yeah, like a self-reflection tool should also be, part of it as well. And I think that was part of what was going to happen when it was listed in October.
Yeah.
Maybe with some self-assessment or something as a component of it.
Rubrics
So-
in the teaching world. So rubrics are often a great identifier for how to self-evaluate. So
Mhm.
it's a great tool. I would suggest that, and I'm happy to bring some tools to the next meeting.
The infamous summative evaluations of teachers.
What are you doing to me, Jen? I love schools to get away from that crazy evaluation. No, I love a self-reflection.
They're great tools.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you,
Good.
Jen.
Okay, and the goal is to do the actual evaluation in September?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I did, when we went over the staff and board communication policy and that you said we need more work on it, like, is this gonna look like an email conversation or comments on the documents? And how can we get broader input from staff on it?
Yeah, I think we're working on it in shared drive, so just adding comments. And comments can be questions about input and so on. Yeah. How do you see moving forward with that one?
Now, can I recommend that we complete, we approach this in two phases. The first phase being that we complete our review with our comments, questions. We resolve the questions or concerns, comments. And then second phase would be to present the board's version of this to the staff and allow them to contribute to it.
Sounds good. And that would
Okay.
all happen in good time before the next meeting.
So we could have like a tentative, like in 2 weeks, we'll have something ready from the board to send to the staff.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The next agenda item is the board entering into an executive session for limited legal matters. And that no decisions will be made in executive session. If any decisions or votes happen, it will be when we exit executive session. I want to thank everybody for coming and for sitting in and for showing an interest. I mean, and staff too, absolutely staff, but and also the prospective new board members. So we'll be in touch. I hope we have all of your emails. I'm sure we do. And if not, if you could send those to Rachel, so we can, for the next board meeting, you know the time of it, August the 24th. And we'll be sending out agendas. And again, if you're interested, it would be a formal, then you stating your interest. And we will go from there. Interest in joining. But I want to thank you all, thank everybody who attended, and yeah, so we'll be in touch.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
So, let's see. So I move to enter into executive session at 8:40.
I'll second it. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 8:40. Okay, Rebecca, do you want to tell us how the conversation went? I think you sent around her.
Hold
her-
up, the recording is still going.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. My bad.
Hey, I did that without bombing the system. Well, I'll be darned. Okay, let's see. I need to find my notes here real quick, folks. Let me see. Uh-oh, where am I? I have 22 screens open. Okay. Let's see, the board. I'm just gonna do my notes real quick. Exited.
We exited about 9:16.
Okay. So there has to be a motion to get out of the session.
You did, and I second.
No, but it's a question more than, is that a requirement to move to exit? Because you can't make any motions in the executive.
Oh, okay, no, I guess not.
Okay, so I want to make a motion to approve Marcia as the organization's president to enter into a letter of engagement with the Rhodey Law Firm on the organization's behalf to assist us with limited personnel matters. And also request that a line item in our accounting system reflect a line item that is specific to legal counsel, and that there be a budgeted amount in there. I know that we've had that conversation about, do we have money for it? And the answer has been yes. So I don't know if my motion made sense or not.
Okay, I second.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna type up the notes really quick. Approve. Board president. Put into the letter for each one. So, Rachel, I don't know the proper terminology for the line item description. You might have to get with Taya on that, but there is a proper term for that. And maybe it's already in the financials here. Let's see.
Are you guys wanting us to change the chart of accounts for this?
No,
Or just create like a class?
no, we just need. You know how under your management and general category, you have a line item called accounting, one for consulting?
Yeah, that's the
Um,
chart of accounts.
Yeah, we need one that's gonna stay legal consulting.
Okay,
And then you had indicated that we did have funds through the McCune Foundation that would assist us with that, that we could use for that purpose.
I
So,
believe so.
yeah, we might want to make sure there's a budget amount in there so that we can monitor the expense versus the budget.
So you want the chart of accounts to be changed to add a line for legal, and then you want
If McCune is already classed,
yeah,
then, yeah, so then when the chart of account has a legal consulting and you pay them on their invoice, you can class it to the McCune and that would suffice, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it looks like you have some account numbers to spare anyways. You have between 6434 and 6440.
Sure, I mean, yeah, it's fine. And so you want that under expenses, but you want a certain amount to be budgeted for using legal counsel
Right.
as well. How
Yeah.
much? You know yet?
No, we don't know yet. I don't know. It seems to me that on one of your reports, you indicated that there was a little over 20,000.
At that time in the McCune funds, there was, yes.
Yeah, and that's general fund use. So it's not just, it's for anything
General
that's not tied to a
operating
grant.
support. We
Yeah.
can use it for whatever we want.
Yeah. But, right, so chances are that it's some of it has been used for other things, correct? Or no? It's still there?
McCune funds?
Yeah.
I think I used some of it for the summer reading program. I've used some of it to pay for Prospera, and that might be about it at the moment.
Okay, so let's see, our fiscal year ended in June 30th, correct? Or we, yeah. So this is actually an opportunity for, we have to approve a new budget.
Mhm.
So maybe still creating that account line item for legal consultation. But as part of the new budget approval process, we identify what where those general funds are at, how much there is, and how much can we lock into legal consultation.
Okay.
That may be the better approach, since we have to approve a new budget anyways.
So
Yes.
then, would we hold off and having legal counsel do any work until, I mean, we're talking about approving it in August. Rachel's
We're-
been working on the new budget.
We can still have legal work done, like Rachel, like I was explaining earlier, budgets are fluid. You know, where they change. As long as we don't ignore the fact that we need to have a budget line item for this type of expense, because it can only use general fund dollars. It cannot be used programming specific dollars. That's where we get into trouble.
Right.
So yeah, we can start expensing, but know that we have to make sure that we have an approved budget that reflects that spending.
But we won't approve the budget until August.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a process.
But we can start spending the money without approving.
Yeah, I mean, we're spending money since July 1st.
Yeah, we're spending money all the time.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we're paying salaries, we're paying utilities, so we're spending money without a budget.
Great. What do you think, Rachel?
I think that's fine. Taya might want to consult with the CPA about adding to the chart of accounts, but that's fine. She can do that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a problem.
I add to the chart, I do the bookkeeping for our church, I add to the chart of the accounts all the time. I just have to make sure that there's a budget tied to it.
Okay, so we're thinking about signing this letter with this law firm this week.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation is to sign it as soon as possible so we could get moving.
Agree.
Okay. Then having that digital account, we just followed the directions they gave on it about creating the space to sign it, and then adding wanting to be billed or notified every week of expenditures.
A weekly account of hours. There was something that you came up with that sounded good.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion was made by me, it was seconded by you, Marcia. And action steps for the next meeting. Can I move to adjourn?
Okay, so it's
Second.
passed.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
okay, so we adjourned at 9:27. And please add to these minutes, because my recollection and typing at the same time do not sync very well. I would appreciate it.
You'll send it around.
All right, thank you all so much.
You'll
Thanks.
put it
Have a good
on
week.
Share Drive.
You too.
Thank you.